Hi, Will from Music Tech at Superbooth in Berlin. We are in the Ableton room with Jesse, and Jesse is going to show us the creative applications of their newly released CV Tools pack. Jesse, what's going on here?
Okay, so the first thing is that we're sending CV signals using a DC coupled interface. So here I've got an ES8 for Expert Sleepers, and that's going to be sending all our CV signals. So if I hit play, what we have here is the first device, which is the CV instrument, which allows you to send pitch and gate signals to your oscillator or synth voice. What's really cool about the CV instrument is that you're able to actually calibrate your oscillator, so it actually matches the tracking according to each oscillator that you're using. And this is really great because you get very consistent scales. The other thing that it also has is that if you, for example, don't have sort of typical VCF, VCA kind of situation in your system, you can actually use a virtual VCA which generates envelopes which you can also freely route within your system, just depending on how many CV outputs that you have.
Okay.
So the next device I want to show you is just a modulation device. In this case, it's the LFO, CV LFO. And this is basically just sending CV signal out. So if I adjust my modulation point on the Atlantis, you can hear that working, and I can adjust this from push, for example, and just have full-on control.
And so I mean, that's to have another modulator there is a really useful thing, because it's one of those things that it doesn't affect the sound as much as, say, an oscillator or yeah, okay,
exactly. Cool. And the next modulator that I have is called the Shaper, which is a really interesting one because it allows you to sort of draw your own sort of complex modulation shapes. And then I'm just going to send that to the pitch modulation. You can see it do some interesting things to the pitch of the sound.
So this is a fully customizable modulation source then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can really pull these values around, and also you can work with a grid. So you can actually create things that also snap to the grid.
Oh, great.
And yeah, it's also freely assignable. So all these CV2 outputs, you can basically just choose the outputs that you want to assign it to.
Great. And presumably you can automate all of this as well.
Sorry?
And you can automate all of this as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the next device I want to show you is the rotating rhythm generator, which basically is actually a MIDI effect. And it can create some very interesting rhythms. If I just switch that all on, in this case I'm sending the information to a drum rack, but of course you could send it to, for example, the CV triggers device, and then trigger things in your actual system. And the fun thing about this is that you can actually rotate the time divisions and create some very interesting breaks or just changes in the rhythmic patterns. So the next device I want to show you is actually not, is just actually sending synchronization. And in this case, it's a clock out, which is actually going to my DFAM. And you see if I change the tempo, if I turn up the DFAM, you can hear that it's following the tempo very closely. There's also a clock in, which allows me to control the clock, actually allow to control the tempo in live from a clock source in my modular system. In this case, I'm using the Pamela workout, and I can also change the tempo directly from Pamela's workout.
And we're tracking that on screen as well. That's great. To the 10th of the BPM, is it? Yeah. Okay. So you only want to run one of those at a time, presumably. So one is being the master, and one is being okay. Yeah.
And then another device to show you is the CV utility, which in this case, what I've done is I've created sort of different automations to create some complex waveforms, and I can send those to my frequency modulation of the Atlantis. And this is running with follow action, so I can sort of change the modulation sort of due to the length of the actual MIDI clip. I also have, just make sure these are off. So I have an envelope follower. In this case, I just have some hi-hats, and I'm using these hi-hats to create the shapes for the envelope follower, and that's affecting the filter modulation. So those are just some of the devices, and yeah, there's a lot of fun to sort of route them around and try that in your modular system and synchronize it with live.
That's an enormous amount of creative potential there.
Absolutely.
And so when's this going to be available then, Jesse?
So this should be available after the 10.1 release, and it's available for all Live Suite and Max for Live owners.
Okay, and it's a free update.
Yeah, and it's free.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.